A veteran's vigilance. The sun blazed mercilessly over the Walmart Supercenter parking lot on San Bernardino Avenue in Laredo, Texas. Rick Dawson, a retired military officer in his late 60s, guided his car into an empty spot, the engine humming softly as he kept it running. Despite his age, Rick's movements were fluid and purposeful, a testament to the discipline and training ingrained in him during his years of service. His sharp eyes scanned the area, taking in the familiar sights of families loading groceries into their cars and children darting between vehicles, their laughter echoing in the summer heat. In the passenger seat sat his wife, Margaret. Unlike Rick, whose body seemed to defy the passage of time, Margaret's face bore the marks of years of struggle with rheumatoid arthritis. Her hands, once nimble and strong, now rested uneasily in her lap, fingers slightly swollen. Rick glanced at her, his heart aching at the sight of her discomfort. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice a gentle rumble that carried both concern and affection. Margaret attempted a smile, though it was clear the effort cost her. "Oh, you know how it is, Rick. These joints of mine aren't too happy today. The drive didn't help much either." Rick nodded, understanding written across his weathered features. He'd watched helplessly over the years as the arthritis slowly robbed Margaret of her mobility, transforming simple tasks into daily challenges. It pained him to see her struggle, but he admired her resilience, the way she faced each day with quiet determination. "Well, we're here now," he said, patting her hand gently. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'll go in and get your medicine from the pharmacy. Is there anything else we need?" Margaret's brow furrowed in concentration as she mentally reviewed their needs. "Yes, dear. Remember, I need 2 medicines. The methotrexate for my arthritis and the folic acid. Oh, and here's the prescription for the folic acid." She opened her purse, her movements slow and deliberate as she fished out a folded piece of paper. Rick took the prescription, carefully tucking it into the breast pocket of his button-down shirt. "Got it. I'll pick up some groceries while I'm at it. You just rest here, okay? I won't be long." As he opened the car door, the wave of heat that rushed in was almost palpable. Rick paused, one foot on the scorching pavement, and turned back to Margaret. "Lock the doors, dear. I know we're in a busy parking lot, but you can never be too careful." Margaret nodded, familiar with Rick's cautious nature. It was a habit ingrained from years of military service, a constant vigilance that never quite left him, even in the most mundane of settings. She watched as he closed the door and made his way toward the entrance of Walmart, his posture straight and purposeful despite the oppressive heat. The encounter in the toy aisle. Inside the store, the cool air provided a welcome relief from the Texas heat. Rick grabbed a shopping cart, its metal cool against his palms, and began to make his way toward the pharmacy section. As he navigated through the store, his mind wandered to the list of items they needed at home. The mundane necessities of civilian life sometimes still felt foreign to him, even after all these years. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion in the children's toy section. A young girl with blonde hair wearing a cute Hello Kitty shirt stood near a shelf clutching a figurine toy. Beside her, a man crouched down, his face a mask of frustration. Rick slowed his pace, observing the scene with interest. The girl's face was scrunched up in disappointment, her small hands gripping the toy tightly. The man, who Rick assumed was her father, was speaking in low, urgent tones, clearly trying to convince the child to leave without the toy. The scene stirred something in Rick's heart, reminding him of similar moments with his own grandchildren. Without really thinking about it, he found himself approaching the pair, a gentle smile on his face. "Sweet daughter you've got there," he said to the man, his voice warm and friendly. "How old is she?" The man's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing with unexpected hostility. "Mind your own business, old man," he scowled, his voice laced with venom. Taken aback by the harsh response, Rick raised his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I just thought—" "Well, you thought wrong," The man interrupted, his voice rising. "Just keep moving and leave us alone." Rick nodded, backing away slowly. As he turned to leave, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. The world seemed to have grown colder, less friendly. He remembered a time when a simple exchange between strangers didn't immediately spark suspicion and anger. As he walked away, he heard snippets of the man's conversation with the girl. "Let's go. Come with me. We need to go. Don't you want to see your new home?" At the mention of a new home, Rick couldn't help but glance over his shoulder. He saw the man taking the figurine from the girl's hands, placing it back on the shelf before picking her up. The girl squirmed in his arms, clearly unhappy about leaving without the toy. Something about the interaction nagged at Rick. The man looked very different from the girl, his features suggesting he might be of Hispanic origin, and there was something off about the way he said, "New home." A note of urgency that seemed out of place for a simple shopping trip. The growing unease. As Rick made his way to the pharmacy, a growing sense of unease settled in his gut. But what could he do? He had no concrete reason to suspect anything, just an instinct he couldn't shake. Shaking his head, Rick tried to focus on the task at hand. He had medicines to pick up and groceries to buy. Margaret was waiting for him in the car, in pain and counting on him. Yet as he approached the pharmacy counter, the image of the little girl's face, a mixture of disappointment and fear, lingered in his mind. The pharmacy section of Walmart was a stark contrast to the colorful chaos of the toy aisles. Here, the atmosphere was subdued, with muted conversations and the soft beeping of electronic devices. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air, a reminder of the serious nature of this part of the store. Rick approached the counter, his footsteps echoing slightly on the polished floor. The pharmacist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair tucked neatly under a cap, looked up and smiled. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you today?" she asked, her voice carrying the practiced warmth of someone used to dealing with people in various states of health and distress. Rick cleared his throat. "Good afternoon. I need to pick up 2 prescriptions, please. Methotrexate and folic acid." He fished out the prescription from his pocket, the paper slightly crumpled from its brief stay there. The pharmacist nodded, taking the prescription and examining it carefully. "Of course, just give me a moment to process this for you." The confrontation at the gas station. After picking up the prescriptions and a few groceries, Rick returned to the car, his unease growing with each step. As he loaded the bags into the trunk, he spotted the man and the girl again, this time heading toward a car parked near the edge of the lot. The girl looked back and waved at Rick, her smile tinged with sadness. Rick's heart sank as he noticed the fear in her eyes. Without hesitation, Rick decided to follow them. He drove cautiously, keeping a safe distance as the man's car turned into a remote gas station near the Mexican border. Rick parked on the far side of the lot, his eyes never leaving the other car. The man got out, his movements quick and furtive. He opened the trunk, leaving it ajar, and headed into the gas station store, leaving the girl alone in the car. Rick's instincts screamed at him to act. He approached the car and peered through the window. The girl was slumped in the passenger seat, unconscious. A bottle of cough syrup lay on the console, its label barely visible. Rick's heart raced as he dialed 911. "This is Rick Dawson. I'm at the gas station near the Mexican border. There's an unconscious girl in a car. I believe she's been kidnapped." As he waited for the police, the man returned, his arms loaded with duct tape and a prepaid phone. Rick stepped forward, blocking his path. "It's over," Rick said firmly. "The police are on their way." The man's face twisted in rage. He pulled out a knife, but Rick's military training kicked in. In one swift motion, Rick disarmed him, pinning him to the ground just as the police arrived. The resolution. The girl, Chloe Parker, was safely reunited with her parents, who were overwhelmed with gratitude. The man, carrying multiple IDs, was arrested for attempted kidnapping and human trafficking. Rick's quick thinking and bravery had saved Chloe from a terrifying fate. As Rick and Margaret drove home, he reflected on the day's events. Though retired, he realized his duty to protect others hadn't ended with his military service. Today, he had been an everyday hero, and that felt just as meaningful as any mission he'd undertaken in uniform.